In 1966, something happened that would change my life forever. Right, Pearl High School, right here in Nashville, was set to graduate its class of 1966 that spring. The only high school in the city that allowed black students at the time, right, despite Brown versus Board of Education. Just 2 years earlier, Vanderbilt had admitted its first class of black undergrads, however, not without staunch opposition. And what that meant at the time, if you were a black student, is you had to be the cream of the crop to get into Vanderbilt, right? Like, you basically had to be Obama, right? Or forget it. So as Pearl graduated its 1,500 seniors that year, there were just two, the valedictorian and the salutatorian of the class, that were lucky to receive that mythical yes from Vanderbilt. One of those students was my father, Walter Murray. His acceptance to Vanderbilt in 1966 as a black student was a game changer for our family, right? So when I received my acceptance to Vanderbilt some 50 years later, right, I couldn't help but to think of him. I obviously wanted to make sure that Owen was the right fit for me, but I also saw it as a special opportunity to continue his legacy, right? So as I embarked on my journey here at Owen, I promised myself just one thing, right? That I'd approach this opportunity not as a luxury, but as a gift, right? And as an obligation to get the most out of my experience. And it's really that commitment that has changed my life over the past 2 years. So if it's cool with you guys, I'd like to share the stages in which that transformation occurred for me. And I call those stages defying gravity, being a really bad leader, like really bad, stepping up to the plate, and manifest destiny. So defying gravity, being a really bad leader, really bad, stepping up to the plate, and manifest destiny. So I knew that I wanted to be engaged at Owen, right? But how was I going to spend my time, right? What was I going to be really passionate about while I was here? These are a couple of the questions that I had to ask myself. And things kind of started coming together for me when I realized that discovering my passion was kind of like defying gravity, right? Isaac Newton established this idea that there's a force of attraction between two objects that brings them closer together, like Earth and human matter, for example. But what I learned is that discovering my passion actually required the opposite effect, right? Distance. And for me, a big part of that was leaving New York City, even though abandoning the exhilarating joy of bottomless brunch every Saturday was like top 3 hardest things I've ever done in my life. But what it allowed me to do is 2 things, right? One, it allowed me to distance my thoughts from the hustle and bustle of my everyday life, to understand the experiences that motivated me and the talents that made me unique. And 2, it allowed me to start living a life of mental clarity rather than mental clutter, right? It was the first time that I'd ever taken a step back to really think about what motivated and made me unique. It was the first time that that I really kind of understood the things that made me tick, right? It was a really kind of interesting time for me. It's getting a little emotional. Whew. All right. So it was the first time that I really ever, thought about what made me unique. It was the first time that I think I ever realized how passionate I was about media. It was the first time I ever realized how passionate I was about tech and about entrepreneurship, right? It was the first time I realized just how badly I wanted to acquire an equity stake in this world, right? Because no one in my family had ever owned a business before, right? That mattered a lot to me. So as I embarked on that journey, right? A little emotional. Those things matter to me a lot, right? So that's what I really focused on here at Owen, right? And I like to say that I effectively defied gravity in order to figure those things out, right? So once I knew that I wanted to start a business here at Owen, I had to figure out, how would I lead? How would I get people how would I mobilize people and inspire people to follow me, right? One of the reasons I came to Owen was to become a better leader. But once I got to Owen, it didn't take me long to realize that I kind of sucked at this leadership thing, right? Like, I had a lot of work to do. The beauty of the Owen experience is that there are so many different opportunities to lead, right? And I was lucky to capture one of those opportunities when I became president of the Black Student Association here, the largest organization that I'd ever led, with about 40 different members from various backgrounds, right? I was really excited about taking OBSA to the next level. And I think in retrospect, I really wanted to prove that I could lead, right? I wanted to prove that I could mobilize and push this organization forward. I vividly remember our first executive board meeting like it was yesterday. It consisted of me taking my 15 best ideas, drawing them on the board, and trying, keyword trying, to lead a discussion with my e-board about how to execute those ideas. As you can probably imagine, my approach didn't work out so well. I remember looking up for a second and just thinking, I'm not sure what's more blank right now, like the walls in this room or the faces of my board members, right? Because I had utterly failed to gain any of their buy-in whatsoever, because I hadn't involved them in my vision. And this would be the first of many teachable moments for me, right? I've failed time and time again at Owen, but it's these moments that have been the most valuable, right? It's these moments that have made me a better leader. It's these moments that made me more empathetic to team dynamics. And it's these moments that really prepared me to step up to the plate. And here's what I mean by that. So Owen became this amazingly safe place for me to practice my leadership skills, right? And I wanted to start utilizing those more in the real world and using them to build my business. So I started NewsCart in a course here called Launching the Venture, which is all about taking an idea from scratch to investor pitch. And what we do at NewsCart is utilize elements of artificial intelligence, like machine learning and like natural language processing, to help companies discover and share news with their employees. So we're kind of like a Google News or Flipboard for companies. And it's our mission to help these companies cultivate a smarter, more informed workforce, right? And I've accomplished a lot since launching the venture. I've launched a prototype. I've traveled around the country to Silicon Valley, New York, and LA, collecting real feedback from real customers. I placed first in the MBA pitch competition at South by Southwest, beating out 16 teams from schools like MIT and UCLA and Kellogg. Right, I've raised money, and we're launching our beta next month with companies like Time Inc. and NBC. So I'm really excited about what we're doing and where we're going. I think the only thing that gets me more excited is the team that I'm doing it with, right? The team that I've built. I have a co-founder and a team of engineers that depend on me, right? Like, this is not the Black Student Association anymore. This is real life. We're building a viable business that could drastically change our lives one day. And if it weren't for all of those teachable moments that I talked about, right? All of the times that I fell flat on my face and picked myself up again, I'm not sure I'd be in the position I am today, right? And finally, that leads me to this idea of manifest destiny, right? The 19th century belief that the expansion of the US was both justified and inevitable. Well, guess what? That's exactly how I feel about my future, right? My success is both justified and inevitable because of the cumulative experiences I've had here at Owen, right? I've failed, I've stumbled, I've learned, I've refined myself in ways that I never deemed imaginable. And I owe it all to that core belief that my father instilled in me a long time ago, right? Long before I was born. That commitment to engaging the Owen experience not as a luxury, but as a gift, right? And as an obligation. That commitment to getting the most out of your experience. I can say with full confidence that it changed my life, and I certainly can't wait to see how it changes yours too. So welcome to Owen, and thank you.